Dear friends, India is passing through a very critical time in its democracy. Jawaharlal Nehru, in his famous speech on the eve of our independence, said, and I quote, "A moment comes which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends, and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance." India is finding its voice again. A new generation of Indians is trying to break from the norms of the past and is looking to the future with hope. Change is not going to come if we don't seek it. The path to change is not an easy one. It requires firm resolve and a strong sense of conviction. We are the change that we seek. Our values determine our destiny. The Aam Aadmi Party has shown courage and determination to overthrow decades of habitual pessimism polluting our polity. They have done what most political pundits thought was almost impossible. They have embarked on a path to reclaim the true spirit of our democracy, a democracy whose constitution enshrines the fundamental principles of individual liberty, secularism, social justice, and equality to all citizens. I believe that the Aam Aadmi Party brings forth important ideas which are of great relevance to our overall efforts in trying to re-energize Indian democracy. Their vision for a clean government and a different kind of politics has captured our imagination. It is not entirely about winning the Vidhan Sabha elections in Delhi next week. It is about sowing the seeds for a better country for ourselves and our posterity. They are bound to make mistakes and may even fail to break the established norms of politics. But whatever the outcome, their effort is laudable and will definitely help rejuvenate democratic ideals of Indian polity. My name is Aman Kalra. I am a physician by profession and I live and work in the United States. I was born and raised in Chandigarh in northern India. This video presentation is entirely my own creation and production. I'm neither a historian nor am I affiliated with any political party or organization. I set out to do this project because I owe it to myself and my country, and I wish to contribute to this transformation of Indian democracy in my own little way. Excellent articles have been written in the media on this subject in recent weeks. What I am attempting here today is to bring to this discourse a comparative analogy between some of the democratic reforms proposed by the Aam Aadmi Party and their relation to the evolution of similar ideas in American democracy spanning over 2 centuries. If you were to read the making of contemporary American democracy, you will quickly realize that it was not at all smooth sailing by any measure. More than 2 centuries ago, in 1787, when the Constitution of a newly independent United States of America was drafted, slavery was a grim reality in this country. Blacks were almost considered subhuman. Segregation among blacks and whites was socially and politically accepted. Interracial marriages were outlawed. Only rich white men who owned property were the only ones franchised to vote. Women did not hold rights to ancestral property. In a country of about 38 lakh people at the time, 7 lakh were slaves. Notwithstanding the prevalence of social ills in the society at the time, quite similar to social ills in our society, be it the caste system, untouchability, patriarchy, and misogyny, the Constitution of the United States embodied a very unique idea. Nothing like it had ever been done before. The power of the idea was in the recognition that people's rights are granted directly by the Creator, not by the state, and that the people then and only then grant those rights to their government. The founding fathers of America realized that all of mankind was seeking the same basic three things: freedom, prosperity, and peace. They believed that humans have a natural propensity to abuse power, and so separation of powers among the different branches of government was essential in order to keep proper checks and balances, and not therefore to confer power with a few individuals. It took almost 75 years and a bloody civil war for slavery to get abolished in America. Even so, continued efforts were made by several states to indirectly disfranchise blacks and native Indians by passing laws known as the Black Codes. It was only in 1964, with the passing of the Civil Rights Act, almost 175 years from the date the original Constitution was adopted, for segregation to end in America. Women in the United States too were disfranchised and discriminated against for more than a century. It was not until 1920 when women got the right to vote with the passing of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. You may be surprised to know that even Great Britain, our colonial rulers, did not give women the right to vote until 1928, France not until 1944, and Switzerland astonishingly not until 1971. Bringing the discussion back to India, the Aam Aadmi Party has broken ground on several fronts by introducing bold reforms. It is perhaps for the first time in contemporary Indian democracy that a party has funded its election campaign in a completely transparent fashion. There might be procedural deficiencies, but their effort is truly commendable. Rather than pointing fingers, the major parties should make an effort to make their own funding transparent. The Aam Aadmi Party has taken initiatives in reforming the nomination process for its candidates in order to take this power from the party bosses to the people. As you know, most parties in India do not practice robust internal party democracy. Candidates are selected by the state and national party leaders amid shrouds of secrecy and backroom deals, which promotes political patronage, nepotism, and favoritism. This was the case even in the United States until the early parts of the 20th century. The so-called Gilded Age of American politics, beginning at the end of the American Civil War in 1865 to the early decades of the 20th century, was dominated by political graft and corruption. Corruption scandals were all too common. Politicians took bribes and rewarded their supporters with posh government jobs. On the surface, American politics appeared vital and dynamic. Voter participation rates were high, yet beneath, the political parties were largely indistinguishable from one another on most matters of policy, and the voters chose sides more on the basis of ethnicity and religion rather than on ideology and on policy. Doesn't that sound familiar? Candidates were nominated by powerful party bosses, which promoted nepotism and political graft. In other words, American political life during those times was dynamic, but without much substance. The very foundations of American values were under threat. The progressive movement during the late part of the 19th and the early parts of the 20th century set out to reform the political system in this country. The concept of direct primary elections to nominate candidates for all elected public offices was introduced and became the most lasting of all progressive reforms. In a primary election, party members belonging to the same political party who want to run for public office first debate and fight it out among themselves. The winner is then nominated by the party as their candidate against the opponent. Generally, voters who are registered members of that particular party are the only ones eligible to vote in the primaries. The process takes away the power to nominate from the party high command to the people. The Aam Aadmi Party's method of selecting candidates for the upcoming Delhi Vidhan Sabha elections next week encourages broad and open participation by the local party workers at the constituency level. These are small but necessary steps if we are to bring transparency and accountability into our political system. I do not wish to proclaim here that the direct primary systems to nominate candidates is the only system which works. Most Western democracies use some sort of modification of this system. India has its own subtleties, and we may have to improvise and come up with our own system. What I'm trying to stress here is the principle. Political decentralization is another very important area which needs urgent reform in India. The concept of Swaraj being pushed forth by the Aam Aadmi Party is very pertinent to this discussion. Political decentralization is a prime mechanism through which a democracy becomes truly representative and responsive. If democracy means people's participation in running their affairs, then it is nowhere more direct, clear, and significant than at the local level. Have you ever wondered as to why Western democracies are able to provide good governance to their citizens? It is not about whether the presidential or the parliamentary system is better. Yes, there are unique advantages and disadvantages of both systems, but that is not the point here. The fundamentals of good governance are universal. It has nothing to do with character, race, or ethnicity. The answer lies predominantly in the power of the local government. Swaraj. Yes, the very concept which was envisioned by the great Mahatma and was laid down as one of the directive principles in our own constitution. Involvement of the masses at the grassroots is what makes America work. India, in fact, took a major step forward when constitutional status was granted to Panchayati Raj institutions by an Act of Parliament in 1993. This was the 73rd Amendment to the Indian Constitution. The world's most populous democracy constitutionally mandated over 2 lakh village panchayats, 6,000 intermediate block panchayats, and almost 600 Zilla Parishads and Zilla Panchayats. Despite this landmark act, many of these Panchayati Raj institutions and Nagar Nigams have failed to deliver efficient and corruption-free governance at the local level. Let us spend a few moments looking at the several hurdles which still remain. Firstly, domination of the bureaucracy over the local Panchayati Raj leadership and political interference by the state MLAs and MPs remains a grim reality. Secondly, the lack of adequate financial resources to carry out the local administration severely weakens the local bodies. Panchayati Raj institutions in India have very meager sources of revenue and do not have the authority to levy and collect local property taxes. They are largely left at the mercy of central and state governments for funds and implementation of various schemes. These hurdles have made Panchayati Raj institutions and Nagar Nigams weak and largely ineffective. Local town governments in America are very strong entities. A town is defined as a geographical area with a population ranging from 5 to 30,000 persons. A town directly elects its own set of 5 to 10 councillors, who are then responsible for all legislative functions of the municipality, such as establishing policy, passing local ordinances and laws, budgeting, etc. The council usually hires, and the key point here is hires and appoints a professional town manager, more like a CEO with expertise in public administration, or consider him an IAS equivalent by training, to oversee the day-to-day administrative operations and implement policy. The town council, like the board of directors in a corporation, may dismiss the town manager by a majority vote at any time. The towns conduct biannual town meetings where all major issues related to the municipality are discussed, debated, and voted upon. Towns have the legal authority to levy and collect local property taxes from each and every household in that town. Local property taxes are in fact the primary source of income for the local administration. The state government too helps with funds, but such funds are generally targeted and directed towards development of schools and other new infrastructure. Towns manage their elementary and high schools, elect school committees, hire teachers and headmasters, construct their own curriculums based on national standards, and so on. Towns have their own public works department, which is responsible for the upkeep of local roads and bridges, maintenance of water lines and sewers, garbage collection and recycling, and so on. More importantly, towns have and pay for their own police, fire, and ambulance services. They maintain their own birth and death registries, land registries, and so on and so forth. Such great levels of local control over services brings accountability, transparency, and efficiency in the system. A strong local government is fundamental to the working of a great democracy. However, it requires delimiting the role of the bureaucrat, strengthening revenue generation at the local level, and empowering the local leadership. The Aam Aadmi Party has shown resolve in spite of astronomical hurdles. Their task ahead is mammoth, and they need every bit of our support. Come, let us join them in their noble endeavor for a better country. Even in their failure, we shall seek success. As the great Mahatma once said, and I quote, "We need to be the change we want to see in the world." It is normal for many of us to be skeptical about the future of our country, but we can't afford to lose faith in the concept of India. We are the standard bearers, and we owe much to our motherland. Let us not look into the depths of despair and hesitate. Let us look to the sky and say to ourselves, it's time to fly. Thank you very much for listening. Jai Hind.